Hello and welcome back to Motivated with Meg. This is season 1, The Eating Experiment, where we toss out the food rules and explore how food and freedom connect. No dogma, just freedom and the space to experiment for yourself. In today's episode, we're diving into a topic I know a lot of us have struggled with, which is how to enjoy eating out with friends and families, and doing so without getting caught up in comparison, food guilt, or worrying about what others think of our body and eating habits. Whether you're being invited out for happy hour or you're going over to a friend's house for dinner or it's the holidays, how can we learn to struggle less when it comes to eating around other people or feeling judged by them when we're eating? My goal is to help you go into these gatherings with a sense of peace, not pressure. So we're going to explore some ways to show up as you are and enjoy the experience without getting lost in the stress of body comparison and worrying about what other people think of you. So let's get into it. First, let's just take a moment to talk about worry and assumptions. There's a really great quote that goes something like, worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair expecting to get somewhere, right? Like you're not going to get anywhere. You're just kind of rocking back and forth and you're staying in the same spot. And worrying is the same thing. We think that worrying is going to help us and we think that it's important, but it's really just a habit. And so oftentimes we worry about an upcoming event or situation and we have some assumptions that we think, some expectations or assumptions we think will happen at that event. And this is often based on past life experiences. So for instance, maybe you've been body shamed before. Maybe somebody's commented on your body or asked you if you're pregnant when you were obviously not pregnant. People definitely do this. They put their foot in their mouth. Maybe someone in your family has commented on your eating habits or your size. And because of this, you may have a good chunk of worry about eating in front of that person. And so then you might automatically assume that they're going to judge you. So if you know that, you're going to your aunt's house for Christmas or whatever holiday you celebrate, and that aunt's commented on your eating habits and your body weeks, months before this event of having to go there for one day to eat in front of her, you might be stressing and overthinking a lot. And that's the goal of today's podcast, is to kind of help us not stress so much over going out to eat or eating in front of certain family members, especially not letting it consume weeks and months of our lives and cause suffering that is not necessary. The thing is that when it comes to friends and family specifically, we do want their approval. And if somebody makes a comment based on our eating habits or body, we might feel like we're not worthy and that we have to do something to now regain their approval. And sadly, there are a lot of families out there that put this pressure on their loved ones. Whether it's intentional or not, they are looking at what they eat, they're looking at their bodies, they're making comments, and it can be really hurtful. And we're going to dive into that a little bit more. And so when it comes to eating out with others, whether you're eating out alone and you feel judged, or you're eating out with others, or you're at a family event, or it's the holidays, it's really all about being present and true to yourself, regardless of the situation. My own story here is that I've definitely had my own share of worries when it comes to going out, whether to a happy hour or a family gathering, especially when I was really dieting and had a lot of diet mentality. And I talked about this in a different episode with going to Martha's Bakery and getting a brownie. So for me, though, these thoughts would start weeks before the event. Should I go? Should I even go was a question. I'm just not going to go to this event that I really want to go to, that I was invited to, simply because I already started feeling judged, because I was judging myself, because I was replaying an event that happened in my life 10 years ago. Whatever the reason, I was already questioning, should I go? Should I stay home? Maybe I'll stay home to avoid temptation because I know there's going to be foods there I can't have. They're not on my diet. Or maybe, I'm telling myself, okay, well, if I go, I'm going to promise myself that I'll be good and I won't have any dessert. Well, spoiler alert, those thoughts often led to me overindulging, not because I was hungry or thirsty, but because I was caught up in my own head, feeling deprived, watching everyone else enjoy their food and themselves. And I just felt like I promised myself I wouldn't have dessert, but everybody else is having it. And then I'd go back on that promise and I'd have dessert, and then I'd overeat dessert, and then I'd feel bad that I overate. I'd feel bad that I broke my promise to myself. I would just feel crappy. I'd feel like a failure. Does this sound familiar to anybody listening? Hopefully not. I don't want anybody to have gone through this or felt this way, but I think it's actually really common. I think it's a lot more common than we realize. This isn't something people just talk about because we feel judged already, and to bring it up and not know how other people are going to react to it, that's a scary thing. So it's not uncommon to feel anxious about what others might think about your choices. Maybe you have a friend or a family member who comments on your body, like I said, or maybe you've got a belief that it's rude to not finish the food on your plate when at a dinner party. Perhaps you worry that your friends will think you're not fun if you don't join in on appetizers and alcohol. Whatever it is, we have our own thinking and then create assumptions and a lot of worry, and that causes a lot of internal unnecessary suffering versus just going out and living our lives and seeing what happens. The truth is that we spend so much time concerned and worried about what other people think. We forget to ask ourselves, what do I want? How am I thinking about myself? How do I want to think about myself? We also create stories and beliefs in our heads about how we think people are going to react to us, right? But most of the time, those stories aren't real. Don't get me wrong. There really are some unaware and truly mean people out there trying to, rile you up and get under your skin. But for the most part, people are actually just projecting their own insecurities onto others. So for instance, I literally have watched this happen more than once where a mother will comment on her daughter's eating habit of some sort, right? Like a mother commenting on a daughter getting up for seconds at a holiday, And so they're not saying anything about their weight or their body, but they're commenting on getting up for more food. And so the underlying message there is, hey, you don't need more food. You're already big, right? That's that underlying message that, oh, I'm not worthy. I need to lose weight for my mom to love me. That might be what that daughter feels. But the thing is that the mother probably has her own diet mentality that she's now projecting onto her daughter. Her diet mentality might be one that you do need to be thin to be accepted and loved in this world. And so if the mother has that mentality and she loves and wants the best for her daughter, then she's going to project that onto her daughter, and she wants her daughter to be thin because she wants her daughter to be loved and accepted in this world. It's not actually about the daughter being thinner. It's about being loved and accepted. And because the foundational belief this mother might be functioning from, diet culture, diet mentality, is to be loved, you have to be thinner, she's now making comments to her daughter on her eating habits and her body. But the daughter doesn't feel loved. She feels and hears judgments on her choices and her body. And that leads to this big disconnect in their relationship. And often some unhealthy eating habits by the daughter. Why? Because the daughter cares about what her mother thinks. Most likely. I know that every mother-daughter relationship is different, so I'm not going to sum every mother-daughter up into this conversation. But from what I've experienced and seen in my life, we care about what our parents think about us. And so we feel judged based off of the comments they say. But that judgment is twofold. One is the parent is projecting onto you, worrying about you and your well-being. And then you're taking that and feeling judged, right? And then you're in your head, if you already have your own diet mentality, it just reconfirms what you already believed about yourself because you already had this negative belief about yourself. And it doesn't mean that the mother believes that negative thing about her daughter, but the daughter has now made the assumption that the mother must think the same way she thinks about herself based off of these words and actions she's taking. And so this is just one scenario with a mother-daughter and just commenting on getting up to get seconds, but just notice how two people in their heads with their own diet mentality can really struggle here. And it can really cause a rift in their relationship, and it can cause some weird eating habits and just a lot going on is the best way I can say it. And so here's the thing. Most people are in their heads just like this, worried about what we think of them and projecting our worry onto others. And so what if we could just show up without the preset expectation of how things should go? What if we could show up without worrying if we'll be accepted and instead allow ourselves to show up how we want to and just see what actually unfolds? So to switch a little bit from a mother-daughter scenario to just something that recently happened with me is that I was recently in Seattle on a work trip, and my company is a great company and they take great care of us, and they took us out to a Michelin-starred restaurant, which I've never been to, and the experience was like nothing I've ever had. And I'm so glad I didn't have diet mentality for this experience. Like, let's be real, right? Because I was allowed to just be there and really enjoy it versus like maybe overthinking a lot in the past. So I'm very grateful that there was no diet mentality around for this experience, which is nice. And what I noticed was that the servers were super choreographed, right? So when they were picking up the food or setting dishes in front of us, they moved in like almost like a dance. It was beautiful. And the plates, they were a form of art themselves. And the food, it was delicious. And I practiced my mindful bites and I savored every single bite I took. It was amazing. And then the last 2 plates of food came out. I already knew I was full. I know my body well enough. I was like an 8 on the fullness scale. I could feel my cheeks getting warm. I can feel my body getting hotter, which is usually a sign of me getting close to nausea because I'm eating too much. And so I had to make a choice. Do I force myself to eat everything because of all the reasons I can come up with, right? This is a once in a lifetime experience. The food's delicious. There's small bites. It's not that much. I'm sure I could squeeze it in. It feels rude not to finish it. This is a really fancy restaurant. Who am I to send the plate back with food still on it, right? So like I could definitely come up with all these reasons to ignore my fullness and keep eating. But I took a deep breath and I reminded myself that I hate that nauseous feeling that I get when I overeat. And I was already bordering on it. And so I just offered the last few bites of the food on my plate to the people at the table with me. I said, hey, I can't finish this. Does anybody else want it? Instead of not finishing it, I just offered it to the people around me. And if they didn't want it, that's okay. It doesn't mean I have to finish it. And when that last plate came out, which was the dessert plate, I did let myself have a bite or two of it so I can experience it. I did want to know what it tasted like, right? That was part of the experience. But it was very rich. And for me, like 1 to 2 bites of rich chocolate is all I need, and I'm satisfied. And so I did that. And I didn't finish it. And I did have some thinking, like, is this going back to the chef and he's going to feel like I slapped him in the face? But the truth is that it was absolutely delicious. It wasn't about the food. It was just me honoring my body and its needs in those moments. So what did everybody else think at the table and the waiters and the people in the back when they saw that I didn't finish the food on my plate? I don't know. And I'm not going to sit here and guess. I'm not going to torture myself and run through it over in my head and create conversations as if I know what these people were thinking. For all I know, the staff scoffed at me and my coworkers thought I was crazy, but I didn't care because it feels so empowering to truly honor myself in any scenario. I gave myself what I needed and I didn't ignore my needs out of fear of being judged by those around me. I want to give one last example. So here's another scenario. Let's say you're at a dinner party and the host offers you dessert. In your mind, you start thinking about how it might be rude to decline. So you say yes, even though you're full, or maybe you don't even like this dessert. Or maybe it's dairy and you're lactose intolerant, but you're still saying yes because it's rude to say no. Guess what? The host is most likely just being a good host. That's what a host does. They offer the people in their house things. It's your choice to say yes or no. So maybe they're offering you something because that's their job as the host. Or maybe they're offering you dessert because they don't want to feel tempted later on with dessert in their house. So they're trying to get it out and offer it to you instead. In reality, declining dessert or any food offered to you is not rude. I mean, if you were allergic to peanuts and somebody said, here's some peanuts, you would say no. And I want you to consider that that's how you can act and react with every food. If you don't want it, don't feel obligated to have it. Just say no. Honor what you truly want. It's just a decision you're making for yourself. And you don't need to come up with an excuse. You don't need an allergy or a medical reason to say no. You can just say, I'm full, or I don't feel like having dessert tonight. Those are all valid reasons. And just to flip the switch for 1 second, if you were the host offering somebody dessert and they said no, would you be offended? Probably not, right? It's just the courtesy of being a host to offer your guests something. It's not them telling you no or disrespecting you in any way. So we want to reframe social eating. What if, instead of stressing over what people might think, we shifted our focus to caring about what we think of ourselves and honoring what we truly needed in the moment, in that situation, in that scenario? Imagine going out with friends and instead of obsessing over the food and the drink that you're having and if it's going to cause weight gain and how many calories are in it, you were able to just focus on the experience itself. You were able to just enjoy the conversation and the laughter and the environment. The real indulgence doesn't have to be food. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It could be the joy of not having to cook. It could be the joy of not having to do the dishes. It could be the joy of being served or having a special night out. All of these can be an indulgence, and it's not just the food. And I'm not saying that because there's something wrong with indulging in food. There isn't. We just want to be mindful about when it feels authentic to indulge and when we're just doing it out of habit or peer pressure. For example, if somebody asked you if you want to have a drink at happy hour, you don't have to feel pressure to say yes. You could say, I'd love a seltzer, instead of I can't, I'm on a diet, or I don't drink. And this shifts the energy. Instead of I can't, I'm deprived, it's yes, I'd love it, and this is what I'd love. And then you just choose what you want. You're still participating, but in a way that makes it feel right for you. So your experiment this week is to do your best to honor your needs in any situation, trying to not worry about what others may think of you or your needs. You have more control than you think you do in these social settings. We all do. When we act in alignment with what we truly want, it can sometimes make others feel uncomfortable. But that's okay. When we say no to dessert or a drink, it may make your friend pause and reflect on their own choices. That discomfort is theirs, not yours to carry. It's okay to prioritize your well-being over someone else's comfort. After all, true friends aren't going to like you less because you didn't indulge with them. As you go about your experiment this week, honoring your needs in any situation, there are a few questions that you can reflect on that might be helpful. They are, what do you fear will happen if you start saying yes or no based on what you truly want and need? What worries or thoughts come up for you around eating out with friends and family? And are there certain places or situations where you find yourself overeating or feeling pressure to indulge? It can be really helpful to just bring awareness to the answer to these questions so you can see when you are doing things out of peer pressure or habit versus out of the desire to actually want to indulge in them. Remember, socializing isn't just about the food or the drinks. It's about the people, the connection, the environment, the memories you're making. The more you practice showing up as yourself without the predetermined story of how things should go or what people think of you, the more enjoyable these moments will be. And that's it for today's episode of Motivated with Meg. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, be kind and be yourself. Everyone else is already taken.